In a small, tight-knit town in North Carolina, the days often passed quietly, with life unfolding at a steady, predictable pace. But one day, an incident at the local grocery store set in motion a chain of events that would ripple through the community, reminding everyone of the power of compassion and kindness. But hey, before we dive into the story, do yourself a favor and pause the video right now. Go hit that like button and let's see if we can make this video reach 1,000 likes. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to your favorite story channel. Also, make sure to ring the notification bell so you never miss out on the latest and weirdest stories. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming your way. Now, sit back, relax, and prepare to be amazed as we take you on an unforgettable ride. Don't forget to engage with us in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Teresa West, a 44-year-old mother, had always been a pillar of strength for her family. She loved her children fiercely and did everything in her power to provide for them, even when life's challenges seemed insurmountable. Her home was a refuge, not just for her 2 children, but also for 2 other young girls who had found themselves in need of care. Despite her struggles, Teresa's heart was big enough to take them in, ensuring they had a safe and loving environment. But life had not been kind to Teresa. A devastating car accident had left her with brain damage and rheumatoid arthritis, making it impossible for her to continue working. The once independent and hard-working woman was now struggling to keep her family afloat, her health deteriorating and her savings depleted. Week after week, she faced the harsh reality of not having enough money to buy food. The thought of her children and the 2 girls going hungry weighed heavily on her, pushing her to the brink of desperation. One day, as she walked through the aisles of her local grocery store, Teresa's anxiety reached a breaking point. The empty shelves at home, the gnawing hunger in her children's eyes, and the overwhelming pressure to provide pushed her to make a decision she never thought she would. She discreetly filled her basket with basic necessities: bread, pasta, and a few other items. Her heart pounded in her chest as she neared the exit, her mind racing with guilt and fear. The store manager, who had noticed her anxious behavior, watched her closely. He had seen her many times before, always polite and respectful, but something was different this time. When Teresa bypassed the checkout line and headed straight for the door, the manager's suspicions were confirmed. He didn't confront her directly, but instead took note of her license plate number as she hurried out to her car and drove away. Not long after, the police were called. Officers Corporal Keith Bradshaw and Officer Candace Springs arrived at the store, ready to investigate the theft. The store's security footage confirmed what the manager had reported. With the license plate information in hand, the officers quickly traced Teresa's location, knowing she lived just a short drive away. When they arrived at her modest home, they expected to confront a criminal. Instead, they found a woman who appeared weary, frightened, and deeply remorseful. Teresa greeted them with a faint smile, but her eyes betrayed the exhaustion and desperation she felt. When the officers asked her about the incident at the store, she didn't try to deny it. Instead, she admitted her actions with tears in her eyes, explaining the dire circumstances that had led her to steal. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't know what else to do. My kids, they haven't eaten in days." As she spoke, the officers couldn't help but notice the stark emptiness of her home. The kitchen shelves were bare, the refrigerator nearly empty. It was clear that this was not the home of someone who stole out of greed, but out of sheer necessity. Teresa's story struck a chord with both officers, especially when they learned about her medical condition and the responsibility she had taken on to care for not just her own children, but 2 others who had nowhere else to go. Bradshaw and Springs exchanged a glance, their hearts heavy with the weight of the situation. They knew the law required them to take action, but they also recognized the humanity in Teresa's desperate act. Despite the empathy they felt, they were bound by their duty. With a sense of regret, they placed Teresa under arrest and brought her to the station. The news of Teresa's arrest quickly spread through the small town. Many people who knew her were shocked and saddened, unable to reconcile the image of the kind, caring woman they knew with the crime she had committed. But the story didn't end there. As Teresa's court date approached, Bradshaw and Springs couldn't stop thinking about her and her children. They had seen many criminals in their careers, but this case was different. Teresa's actions weren't motivated by selfishness or malice, but by a mother's love and desperation to feed her children. The officers decided they needed to do more than just fulfill their legal obligations. They needed to help. On the day of the court hearing, the officers arrived not just to testify, but to advocate on Teresa's behalf. They spoke passionately about her situation, explaining to the judge how a series of unfortunate events had driven her to commit the crime. They emphasized her role as a devoted mother who had taken on the responsibility of caring for children who weren't even her own, despite her own struggles. The judge listened carefully to the officers' testimony, noting the sincerity in their voices and the compassion with which they spoke of Teresa. When it came time for him to deliver his verdict, he did something extraordinary. Instead of imposing a harsh sentence, he chose to show mercy. He dismissed the charges, acknowledging that while Teresa had broken the law, her actions were born out of a mother's love and a desire to protect her children. Relief washed over Teresa as the judge's words sank in. The officers, too, felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing they had played a role in helping a family in need. But they weren't done yet. Determined to make a lasting difference, Bradshaw and Springs took it upon themselves to ensure that Teresa's children would never go hungry again. The officers pooled their own money, nearly $400, and headed to the nearest grocery store. They filled a cart with groceries, focusing on items that would provide nourishment for Teresa's children. When they arrived at her home, the look of shock and gratitude on Teresa's face was worth every penny. She couldn't hold back her tears as the officers unloaded the groceries, filling her empty shelves and refrigerator. But their kindness didn't stop there. They also connected Teresa with local social services, helping her find the resources she needed to get back on her feet. The officers' actions set off a wave of support throughout the community. Neighbors began to rally around Teresa, offering help and donations to ensure she and her children would have a better future. Teresa's story became a symbol of the power of empathy and kindness in the town. It was a reminder that sometimes, even in the face of difficult circumstances, choosing to help rather than judge can make all the difference. The officers' simple act of kindness not only changed the course of Teresa's life, but it also brought the community closer together, showing that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found.